uh, they are not, as though AA may be affiliated with them, and AA may use their places for meeting places and for gathering places, and most of 99% of them that go in these places are members of Alcoholics Anonymous. We still do not finance this through AA on it. All right, and we got to have our own president or group of people who have this club, and it's not considered as an AA as a whole. And so I don't know really, a whole lot. When I came to AA, the first few years, my primary purpose was to stay sober. And I heard a lot of these traditions discussed around, and they didn't really, they didn't really bother me too much. But I'm glad that there was old timers there that understood these traditions and made them, made the group abide by these traditions. And as we stay sober, the longer we stay sober, we find out that how important these traditions are to the group, and that there would not be AA today. I truly believe that, if it wouldn't be for these 12 traditions. I don't know much more to say on the sixth tradition. I imagine through the panels and stuff, if you have any questions on them, on the six traditions, why, I'm sure there's someone here who can answer your questions on it. So, with no further, I'll introduce Tim T.
Hi everybody, I'm Tim Turnbach, and I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And I have been given Tradition 7 to discuss tonight. Or this morning, I should say. It feels like this evening to me because I'm ready for a nap. But Tradition 7, the short form, this talks about every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. But I'd like to read the long form also, for those of you that missed it when it was read earlier. The AA group themselves ought to be fully supported by the voluntary contributions of their own members. We think that each group should achieve this ideal. That any public solicitation of funds using the names of Alcoholics Anonymous is highly dangerous, whether by groups, clubs, hospitals, or other outside agencies. That acceptance of large gifts from any source or of contributions carrying any obligations whatever is unwise. Then too we view with much concern those AA treasuries which continue beyond prudent reserves to accumulate funds for no stated AA purpose. Experience has often warned us that nothing can so surely destroy our spiritual heritage as futile disputes over property, money, and authority. This tradition, to me, more or less describes itself, but I'd like to talk about a little bit of the history of how it came about. And Bob talked about it when he was going over the traditions earlier, some of the points, and some of the other traditions have tied in with this one too, and have already been discussed. But in the very beginning of Alcoholics Anonymous, from Bill W.'s time, they were seeking money because they were broke, and they needed to come up with some cash and capital, they thought. And they went to John D. Rockefeller himself through some people that they knew, and people that were friends of the society at that time. And they were looking for funds. And thanks to the guidance of God, and John D. Rockefeller turned us down for any money. He said that money in any quantities would spoil this society. And he said also that it required little or no funds. But he did help us out in the very beginning. He gave $1,000 donations at the banquet for AA. And from that time on, AA was kind of left on its own. And it's kind of funny, when I came in here, I never heard of a group of people who were fully self-supporting. I mean, we didn't solicit funds. We didn't come up with any monies from outside organizations, from anything. And the only thing that kept us together was God, spiritually, our spiritual programs, and the love, and the many things that everybody already knows keeps us together, and it's beautiful. But back to some of the history of why we, as a group and as a whole, decline outside contributions. In the beginning, there was a problem with monies of one group in particular was given $5,000 to do with as they will. And they had so much controversy and spent several years trying to decide what they were going to do with the money. And it caused so much havoc and so much problems that they had to call on Bill for help. And they had to call on general service offices. And it just created too many problems. And then somebody passed away that had been sober for a while and left $10,000 trust fund in a will. And they had all sorts of arguments that, yes, we need this money, we cannot survive without this, and we need to keep going because we can't be supporting ourselves. We just have not been able to do it yet because everybody seemed to be broke. But through the guidance of the co-founders and many of the people in the groups and the group conscience, they decided to decline it. Because they had at that time realized that over $500,000 was known about that was going to be left to Alcoholics Anonymous, and it would divert AA from its primary purpose, and it would lead us into other areas to where we think we would be better suited of treatment and seeking all these great ideals that we have that the alcoholic likes to be grandiose about, and it would divert us from our primary purpose. But there's a statement that I pulled out of 12 and 12 that I liked real well. It said, like the alcoholic's first drink, if any money was taken, it would set off a chain reaction of disastrous proportions. And that just describes it in itself. The one thing that we need to be self-supporting for, in my own opinion, is just like it discusses in here and in AA Comes of Age and in so many different things in all the literature you'll find, is we need the little amounts of money for the rent, for the switchboard telephones, for the 12-step calls, for the secretaries that we need to hire to help operate these switch lines for the people. And that'll be discussed in some of the further traditions that'll be talked about today. But there's one other statement that I'd like to point out before I finish here. It's just Tradition 7 points out that the irresponsible have become responsible, and by making a financial independence part of its traditions, and that is what gained us the respect that we needed in the very beginning, and that's what keeps our respect today. And that's an idea that this era of thinking is just about forgotten about. And thank you. H, who's going to talk about Tradition 8.
Hi everybody, I'm Ron Hurton, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Ron.
Tradition number 8 says Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever and unprofessional. We define professionalism as the occupation of counseling alcoholics for fees or hire. We may employ alcoholics where they are going to perform those services for which we ought to otherwise have to engage non-alcoholics. Such special services may well be, how'd you get by that word, recompensed, but are usually a 12-step work is never to be paid for. You know, we hear a lot of four-letter words, you know, through life. We hear them in the bars, and sometimes we hear them around these tables, you know. And but there's one word that's a 5-letter word that's kind of vulgar, and it's money. Yeah, we talked about Tradition 6. Hugh talked about money. Tim talked about money. In Tradition 7. Tradition 8 is about making the individual making money from his experience and what he's learned around these tables, and trying to take the good name of AA and use it to his advantage. When Bill W. was first sober, well, I don't know how long he'd been sober really, but for a while he was sober, and Charlie Towns Hospital tried to hire him as an AA counselor, and of course Bill had financial problems, and like most of us do, when we see an opportunity to make money, make a few bucks, well, we're going to jump on that opportunity. But then he took it to the group, and the group conscience told him that, no, we don't want you to take this job and be an AA counselor working for someone. Now that don't mean that anybody in AA can't become a counselor on alcoholism. There's many people in this fellowship they're counselors, work professionally as counselors, but they're not to use the AA name and say, they're counseling somebody with their AA experience, or put their name in the paper or in a flyer or anything, and say, I'm working at so-and-so hospital, and I'm AA, and I'll give you the benefit of what I've learned in AA. They're never to mention the fact that they're even in AA when they're doing this job professionally. This is, what we have received here, we receive free, and what we need to pass that on freely to those who come up behind us. I think you one said about the kids that are being born today. This will be here for them, in the future. If we continue to pass it on free, if we get kind of hit a blank spot here. Anyway, it's not as much fact either. We get into other traditions when we violate one. There, you think you're violating the 8th tradition, but if you were violating the 8th tradition by taking a job and advertising for being AA, you would actually be in fact violating a different tradition. You would be breaking anonymity, and this is what is important in us not violate one tradition, because you just can't do that. You'll violate more than one. I know I haven't talked 5 minutes, but there's another little thing, I guess, that I think of, that as far as my experience, I never had a offer or thought about taking jobs as a counselor or anything like that, but doing 12-step work, I've had several occasions to go pick up new people and take them to meetings and all. Well, invariably, they'll offer to pay for gas money, give me money for gas. And, I was fairly new in the fellowship too when this first occurred, and I actually thought about it a couple times, and then thank God I'd been around these tables enough to know that, hey, this is not the way I'm supposed to do this thing, that I'm not supposed to take money for carrying the message. There's people that done the same thing for me, and would continue to do things for me. So we don't take money for doing 12-step work as such. We just do it, and because it helps us to stay sober as individuals. And with that, I'm going to introduce Tom.
I'm Tom Harr. I'm a hopeless, helpless, recovering alcoholic. I mean, I was. Today I have a little hope. I'm not helpless. For the simple fact, I have all you fine people. I have the 12 suggested steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Here we are discussing this morning the 12 traditions, which are very, very important. Alcoholics Anonymous to me is the greatest fellowship I've ever had the privilege of being affiliated with. And I've often thought of the 12 suggested steps, my opinion, which I have a right to express, perhaps the most beautiful, working, spiritual kit of tools ever presented to mankind. That is my opinion. And we also have, discussing this morning, the 12 traditions. Beautiful. Alcoholics Anonymous in itself is one of the most unique of all fellowships. And Tradition 9 helps bring this out. I can stand up here and talk for an hour and say nothing. But this 9th tradition, all these traditions, as far as I'm concerned, and I am deeply concerned, because I love AA. I love you people. I heard it stated the other night. I heard a man state, well, all AA ever did was save my life. That's not necessarily so. Alcoholics Anonymous did save my life, but it also gave me a way of life. Oh, the Tradition 9, AA as such, ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Beautiful. I think alcoholics are in this tradition, and AA explains it some clearly here. Quite a unique, this fellowship. And many, many people, and I'm guilty of it, states it right here. I don't understand it. They must be nuts. But all these observers have overlooked something unique in Alcoholics Anonymous. I've overlooked it many, many times. Still, I don't know everything. Unless each AA member follows to the best of his ability our suggested steps to recovery. Message here. He almost certainly signs his own death warrant. If you've been around Alcoholics Anonymous any length of time, you've witnessed it, you've viewed it, you've experienced it, his own death warrant. His drunkenness and disillusion are not penalties inflicted by people in authority. No, they're not. They result from his personal disobedience to the spiritual principles. I've heard people say, I have trouble with the spirituality of the Alcoholics Anonymous program. They just have trouble with the program, period. Don't get me wrong, I have trouble with it. I'm not a saint. The same stern threat applies to the group itself. Unless there is appropriate conformity to the AA 12 traditions, the group too can deteriorate and die. You've experienced it, I have too. So we of AA do obey spiritual principles. First, because we must, which is true. And ultimately, because we love the kind of life that such obedience brings. Isn't that beautiful? Great suffering and great love are AA's disciplinarians. Think about that a minute. Let me think. The old slogan, think. Great suffering and great love. We need no other. We need no others. The beauty of this Alcoholics Anonymous, the importance of the 12 traditions, 12 steps, your life and my life, referred to as a way of life. I'd like to mention this and then I'll close. To me, Alcoholics Anonymous has been so beautiful. I heard an Indian lady talk, only true American, I'll share it with. Alcoholics Anonymous is a program of sharing and giving. She gave such a beautiful talk. She said, Al-Anon, my God, please don't overlook Al-Anon. I'll mention this, we had a doctor in Indianapolis dead long ago, but an ardent AA member. I don't want to talk too long here. But an ardent AA member. He would not, if I went to him as an alcoholic and I was married, he says, bring that spouse. This is a family illness. But getting back to the beautiful lady, the Indian, so happy, so grateful, so beneficial, so she poured her heart out. And in her closing remarks, you could heard a pin drop, and this is, I hope they have a tape of her, maybe they don't have, from Oklahoma. But in their closing remarks, I extend and give to you all my love. And you could hear a pin drop. This is Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, at its finest, at its greatest. It states here its trustees are caretakers. In one sense, the reality, we're all but trusted servants. It discloses a society without organization, emanated only by the spirit of service and true fellowship. Thank you and God bless you. Well, I better introduce Rusty here.
Hi, I'm Rusty and I'm an alcoholic. And I have Tradition 10. I also have the book, I can't find it. No AA group or members should ever in such a way as to implicate AA express any opinion on outside controversial issues, particularly those of politics, alcohol reform, or sectarian religion. We can forget that, you know. The Alcoholics Anonymous group opposes no one concerning such matters. They can express no views whatever. I think in this tradition, it explains itself fairly well. It tells you that whatever political thoughts you have are yours. It tells me that whatever religious matters or thoughts that I have, they're mine and they're yours. And when I come to AA, I didn't think I had much, but till you read the traditions, you end up with a whole lot. And so I'm going to close the book, and I'm going to discuss something that I feel that should be brought up for this area. I think that we should work these traditions in all our affairs, and that includes the affairs outside of these meetings. In this area, there's been a big controversy over a restaurant and some people going in there, and it has been stated that they let it be known what the group is that's coming in after meetings, such as someone standing up and hollering, "Hey, all you AAs over here." In my opinion, that is breaking the 10th tradition, that we shouldn't be doing this. When I walk into a restaurant, and may I walk in with an AA friend or my sister who is not an AA, in no way should any one of them know that I am an alcoholic and be able to pick me from anybody else. For me, that's my anonymity, and it's very dear to me, you know. A lot of people know me. They know me through AA. They've known me through being drunk. So it's, I don't know, for me, I think going into a public place and announcing, hey, I'm from AA, you got to treat me special. In this instances, the people from this restaurant are talking about denying service to Alcoholics Anonymous people. They are strictly saying flat out, the one manager says no AA is allowed because they are disruptive, because they act like asinine idiots, you know. And what they are doing is they're taking what a few people from AA are doing and grouping it all together and blocking everyone. And I believe this is unfair, but I don't know. For me, I think the people that are going in there and doing these things are breaking Tradition 10, and I don't know what I as myself can do, but I know that if I can take it to the group, to my GSR, and they can talk it over, maybe they can help me out with that. And I'm going to close, and Steve's next. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Steve Fleckenstein, and I'm definitely an alcoholic. What I'm going to do is, of course, it's 11th one, and we are talking about anonymity and the public relations. And it says in the long form, our relation with the general public should be characterized by personal anonymity. We think AA ought to avoid sensational advertising. Our names, pictures as AA members ought not be broadcast, filmed, or publicly printed. Our public relation should be guided by the principles of attraction rather than promotion. We feel it is better to let our friends recommend us. And that part about recommending us, it's in the 12 and 12, and they found out that as the word got out to the press, they wanted to interview AAs. And we didn't want it that way, and they couldn't understand it, because every other organization, when they do something or have something good, they have certain people willing to stand up. I'm a member, and I was behind that. And that's the way most of us was as drinkers. We wanted recognition and promotion and money, and at least that's what fits me. And a lot of this is going to be my opinion and how I see it and how I work it. But for some reason, the press really accepted this idea. It was new, it was fresh, and they became willing to help us and became friends. And most publications would not take people's names or pictures. And there was a time when people wanted to break this idea, and they wrote letters to all the major newspapers and everything, stating the tradition of anonymity. And even some of the press went to the people and said, no, you can't do that. And it was touched on earlier how we was going to write letters and get this taken care of. I was going to read part out of how Bill sees it, and I read all of them that was in there. And basically, to a large extent, what he says is there's over and under in anonymity. And of course, under is when you take that full-page ad out in the local newspaper and say, I'm so-and-so, I'm an alcoholic. There's a lot of danger in that, too, also, because people see whoever has publicly went forth, and all of a sudden they get drunk. And Bill says that these people end up being removed. And that destroys a lot of hope for a lot of people coming here. You know, somehow I knew when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, there was a group of people who didn't drink. And I no longer wanted to drink, and life was hell. And I decided to go where the experts was, and that's about all I knew of this organization. The other aspect is over. And this is everybody's own opinion how they use it. In a meeting, I use my first and my last name, and I have several reasons for doing it. Friday night is a night that I like to travel. And if I get in trouble leaving a meeting 30, 40 miles from home and need a friend, it's hard to call Bill and Mary and Jack out of that phone book. They're not listed. The other thing, if I hide who I am in a meeting and there's a new person, has 2 or 3 numbers and can't get anybody, and he needs somebody, maybe he can remember my last name, and I am in the phone book, and my phone is open. There's some other aspects of not denying who I am or what I am, and that's to people outside of this program as well. The people outside the program think of an alcoholic as the one who is under the bridge. You know, got the little brown paper bag and the trench coat and all that. Now, I don't see anybody in here that really fits that description. But until those people know an alcoholic who has recovered, that stigma is going to be there with us. And it's going to be harder for people to come forward. As the image of a recovering alcoholic improves, it makes it easier for people to come to us. There's another aspect of this. I come from a small town. It's Quincy, Ohio. About everybody there knows who I am and what I am, and I don't care. Because before I came here, they knew who I was and what I was. My original sponsor about the second week says, have you told anybody you're an Alcoholics Anonymous? No. My wife knew. She had to know where I was going. I don't know whether she really cared when I left by that time, but anyway, she knew. And so finally I decided to tell my mother. That made one lady really happy. But see, I denied that I needed to tell anybody, and Jerry was the one that told me that I'd already told the world what I was by my actions. He said, it won't hurt to let somebody know that you're trying to do something about it. Amongst the people I trust, there is a thing that they can break my anonymity when there is a need. My sponsor did a while back. He says, I can't help you. I can't relate to that. But call this man. He's been through it. That doesn't bother me. I had a lady who was on the street, you know, street people, if you like that word. I'm not overly comfortable with it. But anyways, she said, hey, I told somebody that you was in AA. Is that okay? Sure, it was okay. Because there was a night that I'd been on this program about 3 years. Can't tell you what was going on, but I was done with this program. I was done with the people. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, and a knock came on the back door. I opened the door and I looked into those eyes. And I knew what it was all about. I'd seen them in my mirror many a mornings. And I said, do you want to go to a meeting? I didn't give a damn if he went. I knew I was going. See, because people knew who I was, it saved me that night. The girl used to babysit for my youngest daughter. She came in this program. She came to me because she knew I was an alcoholic. And Bill says the word of mouth is what gets a lot of people here. If nobody besides recovering alcoholics knows that I'm an alcoholic, I can't carry the message. And that's how I feel. You know, everybody has the right to have their anonymity to whatever degree they want, except they cannot break it at the level of radio, press, and film. That's where the tradition says we maintain anonymity. And you know, I don't think anybody's ever hurt me or given me any static because I said I was a recovering alcoholic, and half the people who's never had the problem says, that's nice, you did something about it. The job that I'm on now, I went for the interview. In the middle of the interview, they started stuttering. They say, we understand. I said, you're right, I'm an alcoholic. I knew what they was getting to. You know, there was a day that I had got there ahead of me. And there was a day they wouldn't have hired me. And they asked how long I'd been sober, and I told them, and what do you do about it? And I told them I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, and they said, we can live with it. You know, for me, I never want to deny who I am and what I am to anybody, because the next person in line is me. And when I deny who I am to me, I'm in trouble. You know, this is a way of life. This is my life. I didn't come here for fun and games. I came here because I chose to live. I didn't really know what I was getting. I was just looking for sobriety. And what you people are giving me is wonderful. And any chance that I have to pass it on to anybody who needs it, I want to have the nerve to stand up and tell them who I am and what I am. And it's not so bad. You know, Jerry told me if you didn't like being an alcoholic, when I came here, try non-practicing. It fell away by the wayside. I don't know. I just believe for me, there can be no denial. Because when I deny, I die. The other thing is when I deny and let it known, somebody else might die. Because I do know that there has been calls from people who only found out from non-alcoholics that they could knock on my door. And I never want to forget that set of eyes when I was totally fed up with this organization. And it's crazy. I don't know why I was fed up. But I'm damn glad I got back here. And each to his own. And don't get me wrong, when I came here, it was hard to say I was an alcoholic in these rooms, let alone on the outside. And I'm not telling the new person who's been here a week or two that they have to do that. My sponsor, it took him 3 or 4 years to talk about it on the outside. He guarded that, and today he talks about it very freely. Mainly, these are my opinions and how I see it. And that's about all I got to say. And I'll introduce Eve. She has the last one. Thank you.
I'm Eve, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, everybody. And I'm exactly where I need to be this morning, with people who understand me and love me. And I'm to talk on the 12th tradition. And it says, and finally, we of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the principle of anonymity has an immense spiritual significance. It reminds us that we are to place principles before personalities, that we are actually to practice a genuine humility. This to the end that our great blessings may never spoil us, and that we shall forever live in a thankful contemplation of Him who presides over us all. What little bit I wrote down here, I took from the book last night, Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age. And Tradition 12 comprehends all the traditions, and it's a vital, important principle. I'm grateful today for traditions because it is the principles that I try to live by one day at a time. And all these traditions have the elements of sacrifice, either by the groups or AA members. And in the beginning, anonymity was our fears and anxieties for some. Then we did have some members that wanted friends and relatives and doctors and people that had tried to help them to know that they were in Alcoholics Anonymous. But this word of mouth method of letting people know about AA had to be limited. Anonymity is real humility at work, moved by the spirit of anonymity. We try to give up our natural desires for personal distinction as AA members, both among our fellow alcoholics and the general public. We need to stay humble and not get big ideas. Humility expressed by anonymity is the greatest safeguard that Alcoholics Anonymous can ever have. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody on doing the 12 traditions. Now we're going to go to the Ask It basket, and Diane's going to come up and introduce them. So hurry up and get your cards filled out.
Thanks, Scott. At this time, we're going to have the Ask It basket, and all of you have cards on your tables, and you have baskets to put the cards in. So if you'll fill them out, put it in the baskets, and pass the baskets this way, why we'll get them at this end of the table. I'm also going to ask the panel to come up at this point too, if they'll come up and have their seat. And while they're doing that, I want to take the chance to apologize for the space. Oh, first of all, I'm Diane Wright, and I am an alcoholic. Yeah. I'm real sorry about that. We're sort of crowded together, but the registrations were just so numerous, and no one expected a crowd like this, that we had just very little choice in what to do with the rooms here. And last night we worked. We tried the tables sideways, crossways, any way you want to go. And we just knew that no matter how we went with them, we were still going to be crowded. So I do apologize for that. I'd like to also take the opportunity to tell you that there were 79 people registered. We have them 2 here from as far north as Toledo over here, which we welcome. We have them south from Cincinnati. So I feel that we're really well represented today, and it is amazing, that people can care enough to come out on a day like this. As Bob Dunn said this morning, we talked about January, and we knew the weather would be bad then, so we picked April, so the weather would be nice. I'd like to also at this time, while Bob and Paul or Bob and Ken, I guess they're up here. Okay, if you gentlemen just want to come over here and sit down in our 4 chairs here. Yeah, just sit them right there on the corner for me, thanks. I'll take this time right now to introduce the DCMs and the alternate DCMs from District 21 and 23. If you'll stand, Judy Willingham back in the corner is our alternate DCM for District 23. Dave Long, who is DCM, isn't here yet. And Paul, will you stand? Paul is the DCM for District 21, and I'm alternate DCM for 21. Way back when this was first suggested, everybody sort of looked amazed, and our 2 districts put our heads together and decided, as Scooter said, let's go for it. And that's what we did, and that's the result of today. And I really thank everyone for making the effort to come out, and I want to thank everybody that helped me. There's too many names to go down through, but it was amazing. Every time I asked for help, I never got a no. I got a yes, and they did it right away. And it was just, totally amazing at the support that we've received for this. And I thank you all. It is being taped, in case you hadn't noticed our friend Bill over there. Bill, can you say hello? Okay, he is taping this for us, and at the same time he's duplicating it right on the spot. And so there will be tapes available of this workshop afterwards. There's a series, a book like this, and there's the 3 tapes in it. Of course, you can see it's not there yet, but it will be. And that'll be $15, and if you want to buy the tapes separately, it's $5. So see Bill about this. Also, we're going to give one away, and because this is an anonymous program, we're going to let Linda and Donna here put enough numbers in the baskets for all of you that's registered, and we're going to draw the number. And we have your name down as to how you registered, as to what number you are. I think we got it worked out. We'll try, and we'll let you know then who wins the free tape at the workshop reports. They didn't know this, see, I'm surprising them on this. And there were flyers back there on Founders Day and the Ohio State Conference in July, but they may be gone now. But if not, pick one up. I don't think anybody's announced too. This church is real good to us. They're very good to AA. And the only thing they request of us is that we do not throw our cigarettes outside in their yard or in the driveway. And I really would appreciate you observing this for me. We do have pop now too back in the kitchen, and it is 50 cents. And at this time now, for the Ask It Basket, I'll introduce our panel. For some of you that may not be aware of this, it's courtesy to ask the area officers. So we have sitting at this table 4 of our 5 area officers, and this is Area 56, Southwestern Ohio. And the gentleman on the far right is Jack Connors, who is the recording secretary. Next is Russ Fisher, the secretary, Ken Gray, alternate delegate, and Bob Morris, delegate for our state, for Southwest. May I have the basket, please? Okay, the mics, gentlemen, are set up, and he said keep them about 6 inches to a foot away from you. We have mics set up on the floor here in case you want to ask a question or your question isn't explained fully. We ask that you come up and talk into the mic, or if there are questions that you feel you want to ask and they haven't, been asked. And the first question is, why is it necessary for an alcoholic to identify his or herself as I am an alcoholic or an addict? And an addict. Do we have a volunteer there?
Why are we letting Bob handle that one? I'm Bob and I'm an alcoholic. Can you repeat how they worded it?
Okay.
Why is it necessary? Because they have to know what they are. That's all. They're reminding themselves what they are, not me. They're letting me know what their problem is. I'm an alcoholic and I'm Bob Morris. I know nothing about drugs. I never experienced it. It wasn't on the streets when I was there, that's all. If it had been, I'd have had it. There's no question of that. If it had been there, I probably would have been there just like anybody else, but it wasn't there when I was there, that's all. So I can't deal with drugs, per se. I can't say I'm a genuine alcoholic because I never took 2 aspirins. I never took 2 Alka-Seltzers, etc., etc. If 4 would do it, 10 was better, and etc. That makes me an addict. You can tell by my physique that I'm an addict at food and a few other things. Just my nature. But it's important that you introduce yourself only to remind yourself of exactly where you stand. Does that answer your question?
Is there anything that can be done about those AAs who are giving the group a bad name, as Rusty pointed out?
I'm Russ Fisher, alcoholic.
Hi, Russ.
A few years ago, I personally probably would have went over and jerked them out of their socks. But we don't do that. But it would, with all due politeness, to go over and tell the people exactly what they are doing. And if they're breaking your anonymity, let them know so. If they are making, what Rusty say, an asinine fool of themselves, also let them know that. It's part of your responsibility to the AA group as a whole. We don't want to damage the reputation that AA has as a whole throughout the world. And it's up to all of us to see that no one does. It's part of carrying the message. Thank you.
Did that take care of it? The next question is, what of non-alcoholics coming to closed meetings? What of non-alcoholics coming to closed meetings?
Same way one hand.
I'm Ken Gray, alcoholic.
Hi, Ken.
It's a closed meeting. It's for alcoholics only, in my opinion. And the people that are there that are non-alcoholics need to be informed. Ask them to leave if it's a closed meeting. Either that or open it for the one night. It's up to the group conscience.
I have a question I'd like to ask in relation to this. If one person objects, then the non-alcoholic has to go. It does not take a majority, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
If that person has the desire to stop drinking, it doesn't necessarily have to be an alcoholic. That's one requirement.
Right. If they have, but you're talking about a non-alcoholic doesn't have a desire to stop drinking.
That's a judgment call, don't you feel?
No.
I agree with your statement, Ken, in that respect, yes. In our home group, usually, if that comes up, we ask, do you have a desire to stop drinking? And so mote it be as to their answer. If they have none, then they don't belong there. If they do, yeah.
I agree with that.
Mr. Robbins?
Yeah, connection with the closed meeting, non-alcoholic who identifies themselves as a non-alcoholic in a closed meeting, the chairman's responsibility is to ask them if they're there with someone, a member of their family, which is possible. And then that family member should invite them to leave.
That, I would say, belongs to the group's conscience, the way they handle their meetings. Yes, probably so in some groups. I wouldn't know. I'm not familiar with that procedure, but...
Can I say something?
Sure.
The first meeting I came to when I came out of jail was a closed meeting, but I identified myself as an alcoholic. And I knew I was.
That puts you where you belong, didn't it?
Yeah.
What's the question? Beautiful.
I'd like to ask a question on the point you made. You said you asked the person if they had a desire to stop drinking to determine whether they belong in a closed meeting. Does this mean people who are sent by the courts who don't have a desire to stop drinking don't belong in closed meetings?
It sure does.
Can we pick this up, or does he need to come
Why
up
don't
to the
you walk
mic?
up to the mic in the center of the room there, Steve?
I'm still Steve, and I'm still an alcoholic. Sometime back, I was in a meeting, and a new person came in, and it was a closed meeting. And it was a man, and his wife was along, and she introduced herself as the wife. But what the group decided to do at that time, seeing as it was the very first meeting, that a quick census was taken, said, okay, tonight let's make it an open meeting under these circumstances. And it would have been a shame to told the lady she had to go, because the alcoholic would have probably left with her. So we got to use some real easy logic on what we're doing when we get rid of the non-alcoholic. And the conversation of the night went on pretty much just about like a normal meeting, and they had dropped back to the first step. And I have no qualms about being an alcoholic, why, and that. And I think, to make it cut and dry and say somebody's got to go, you could do as much damage, and it hurt nobody for one night. And they were notified it was closed, and that there was places where she could go with him. Thank you.
The cassette over to hear side 2.
We had this issue come up with a meeting, and it was finally resolved that I as an individual or anyone else as an individual at that meeting could not call anyone else an alcoholic, that it was an individual decision. All that we could do was to announce at the beginning of that meeting that it was a closed discussion meeting for Alcoholics Anonymous, not Narcotics Anonymous, not Al-Anon, not Alateen, ACA, or anything else. That it was Alcoholics Anonymous, and it was a closed discussion meeting for alcoholics. But for an individual to identify someone else and say, you're not an alcoholic, you don't belong here, we cannot do that. I can only speak for me to say that I am an alcoholic. I cannot speak for anyone else in the room. I can only identify what kind of meeting it is and let it go at that.
Amen. God, we make sense when we get sober, don't we?
I'm Mary, and I'm an addict alcoholic. And
Hi, Mary.
I wish you would have saved that comment for 5 minutes. because I think I'm about ready to complicate things. All right, I heard someone say that a group conscience could be called and for that evening a meeting could be opened. I heard somebody else say that if one person objected, that the person would have to leave. All right, does the group conscience of the normal people that meet there, are they the ones that decide whether or not this policy is going to be opened? You know, can the group conscience of that one meeting state, if this happens in our group, this is the policy that we'll state? Or is it just a flat AA policy that if one person objects, the meeting has to stay closed?
A group conscience of a group in the particular evening is everybody that's present at that group that night, isn't it?
I guess that's
when
my question.
When I come to your meeting tomorrow night, I'm as much a member of that group tomorrow night or that meeting tomorrow night as anybody else. That doesn't mean I'm on the steering committee or I'm on anything connected with that particular group, other than the fact I'm an alcoholic and I'm attending that meeting. Usually when we chair a meeting and we announce that this is a closed meeting, and this usually will make someone who does not want to be there uncomfortable. As long as nobody is disruptive, like I was when I came to my first meeting, they don't take me from the room even. In my group, when you have someone who is like I was when I first come here, they usually take you in the other room and have a chat with you and give you some words. And give you a chance to clear your mind a little bit as to what you're into. That's all.
Okay, so then it's just a flat policy that anybody that objects who is a member of Alcoholics Anonymous can then keep the meeting closed. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
In our group, if that would happen, and there's one or two people who say no, just flat ask the question and it's posed. It's a direct question. Does anyone mind this party being here? Amen.
If there's any more maybe concern about this, you could discuss it at the workshop time. The next question is, what traditions apply when someone assumes an office or responsibility in AA and doesn't fulfill their commitment? How is this handled?
Jack, you got this one coming, big boy.
All revenge is sweet. My name is Jack Connors, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Jack.
The ninth tradition tells us that the groups need very little organization, that we elect people, that we rotate people. Well, by being elected and rotation, we're talking about responsibility. And if someone fails to fulfill their responsibility to the group, to the area, to the intergroup, whatever, they're not doing the job. And normally, the way I've seen it done is to confront the person on their behavior and say, you'll either do the job or please resign so we can have somebody in there to do it.
Does that answer the question? Okay. The next question is, what if the person is an alcoholic and drug addict? Is he, she allowed to go to a closed meeting? And remember, alcohol is a drug, so I believe all of us are drug addicts.
Read that again.
I knew that. What if the person is an alcoholic and drug addict? Is he, she allowed to go to a closed meeting? And remember, alcohol is a drug, so I believe all of us are drug addicts.
Why not? You said an alcoholic. If you're an alcoholic, that's the only requirement. Is a person who desires to stop drinking, and you're a self-admitted alcoholic, why wouldn't you be allowed? Why wouldn't you be welcome? Does that answer your question?
It's unimportant what else I'm addicted to. I'm addicted to alcohol. That's why I'm here. You know, I got 24 other things that I'm addicted to, but I'm here because I'm an alcoholic.
Is it breaking tradition for outside enterprises such as AA jewelry salespeople, AA tape companies, and etc. to be present and selling their products at AA meetings and workshops, general assemblies, so forth. Even if such companies are not for profit, it appears that AA is lending its name to them.
Is that one mine?
Mhm.
I thought so.
That was unanimous.
Now we have a question, so I can cover all of it. Okay, jewelry. We have a conference that I think most of you folks are aware of coming up. We have been contacted by people who sell jewelry, and they wanted to come and set up a display, and we told them that we're not a flea market. That's not the intention of our conference. If they wish to sell their jewelry, they can do so in any room that they rent or they require for that evening. They buy a room, they can sell whatever they want in their room. It's not connected with the conference itself. Tapes are a convenience of today's age, and at workshops, at many conferences, etc., yes, we do tape, and usually it's a member of the fellowship who is willing to do that. And usually it takes them years to get their equipment paid for in that respect, but it has to be that way. And it's strictly their entity that they're into, and it's for our convenience. The mini conference was beautiful. Back there on the table is our mini conference that we had in its entirety on tape. Between now and 3 weeks from now, I'll have that on the tape recorder pretty regular at home. And I will refresh my memory, and I will hear your words of wisdom to go to New York with me. Just as today's tapes will be a reminder of things we heard today. And we can use that resource to refresh our memories as to what, where, why, and how. And I think that pretty well answers it, doesn't it?
Is a group breaking tradition if it allows the reading from the 24-hour book, not an AA publication, or announcing outside activities such as dancers sponsored by treatment centers? This is a two-part question, so that's the first part.
Okay. What's the first? Is it breaking tradition?
In fact, the second part we've almost covered, because it's what about teenage kids of AA members who are not alcoholics attending closed meetings. And I think, that sort of was thoroughly discussed a little bit earlier. So.
Yeah, I need it. Do you want this?
Doesn't make any difference to me. You're doing a fine job.
Is a group breaking traditions if it allows a reading from? How can they be breaking a tradition in their own group? If they choose to have a reading from that in their group, what's wrong with it? It's not affecting my group over across town or up here. That's their prerogative. We're not the only ones who manufacture literature. So that's their prerogative to do that. Outside activities in my home group, if you have a function coming up, you announce it before or you announce it after the meeting, not during. Sometimes we have announcements before we start our meeting, and that's the time to bring them up. Mary can talk about her sewing circle or whatever the heck is coming up. That's what it's for. But during the meeting, we do not in our group. One of us will say that's for later on, usually. Does that answer that question?
Like you're saying, if a meeting starts at 8, then you would have those kind of announcements like starting at 7:45, or you would start them after the serenity prayer, or how's that done in your group?
Usually in our group, we call a meeting to order, and we have announcements before we say the serenity prayer. And afterwards, they say comments. That's a good time to bring them up. And if you happen to be a GSR or an intergroup rep, that's usually when you have to give your reports. Is when you can squeeze them in, because they don't really want to hear it. I know I got a unique group. None of you experienced that, but that's the way it is, you know. So that's the purpose. That's when you can say anything.
A group, if it is, called Young People of AA, sponsoring a dance. No mention of how money to be spent or divided like 60, 30, 10. Is this against Tradition 6?
My name's Russ Fisher. I'm alcoholic. I don't really fully understand this. A group sponsoring a dance. No mention. Is this meant on the flyer or something, or what?
Usually when a group is sponsoring a function and it says young people there, young people sponsor dances, variety shows, etc., etc. Usually they're sponsoring that to create funds to have their function. And it's usually stated somewhere to that respect.
We have a beautiful young people's group in Ohio, and they have their own conferences. But as to how the money is spent or divided, I don't see where that's any concern if you're not involved with the young people. Anybody here curious how the money's going to be divided up from this workshop?
I was just about to comment on that. I have been asked that at several GSR meetings and at other meetings, exactly what I was going to do with the money. And I informed them I thought I'd go to the Bahamas, and had I known it was going to be snowing like this, that's where I'd be today, you know. But
my point is that, I mean, it's no business to mine where the Saturday night meeting here at the church, what they do with their money, whether it abides by the 60-30-10 plan. Why should we be curious about the young? Why? Do we think that they're inadequate or something, or what?
There's a question back there in the red.
do you want to use the mic and just sort of line up?
My name is Harvey Robinson. I am an alcoholic. Yeah, young people in AA to me is a wonderful thing. This is my personal opinion. I help them all I can. If they come to me and want to sell me a ticket to one of their dances, I'll buy it if I have the money. If they're selling T-shirts, I'll buy T-shirts or sweatshirts. I'll help them sell T-shirts and sweatshirts. To me, that's a form of service. The money they get for that, they use for scholarships to send people to the Ohio State Conference and to Founders Day and other worthwhile AA functions. And to me, that is perfectly all right. If they don't send some to the GSO in New York out of it, that's on their conscience, not mine. Thank you.
Good comment.
There's the real answers coming now. There you go.
I'm Carl Small. I'm an alcoholic. That was my question, but I didn't state it. And in the meantime, I found other information out about it, so we'll kind of withdraw that question.
It must have been a good question. It caused a lot of comments. By God.
Okay, the next question is, is keeping back enough funds for an anniversary dinner considered to be breaking Tradition 7? If so, would accepting contributions at a meeting for this purpose be breaking a tradition?
I got some at home. I don't want people to know I need them. Ken Gray, alcoholic.
Hi, Ken.
And I don't see that it's up to Alcoholics Anonymous to feed people. You know, our General Service Office in New York is not self-supporting through our contributions as is. And if we're spending our money to feed people, we're not using it to carry the message. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of different opinions on that.
If you're going to have an anniversary, pass a basket again. If they're really interested, you'll get some money for it.
We really do that in our home group. In fact, it depends on who's chairing. We have one individual who likes to really have a big do, so it gets about 3 weeks extra passing for him. And I don't know why. It's just his way. Sonny's the one I'm talking about. Love him dearly. Prudent reserve. Your group as a whole knows what they need for a prudent reserve. I don't think many groups know exactly where they stand on their prudent reserve. How many people in this room, when was the last time you heard a treasurer's report in your group? I think that speaks for itself, you know. And it's some of the biggest groups that I've ever attended in Cincinnati area. The one that comes to my mind is probably the largest one on Saturday night, and was for years. And I used to go there when I was first in this program. And they had every kind of pop in 2-liter bottles you could think of. And they had all kinds of cakes, and cookies, and everything else. And it's probably the least treasury in town. I wonder why. Because it was all sitting out there on the table, that's why. That's why. Consequently, it has a heck of a time staying gone. They have to pay rent, and it just about does them in every time they come up with rent time. You know, they've blown it on their 2 liters and on their cakes and cookies and whatnot, and that's pretty obvious. It just works that way. Does that answer that question?
Can I make one comment? On the prudent reserve, your area officers have been to several conferences, and this topic has come up at many of them. And straight from New York, they say a prudent reserve is 2 months operating expenses for a group. Now, if you've been a group for a while, you can go back in your treasury's book and add up the different months of how much it cost you to operate. Divide that by the number of months, and it'll give you a good average. If it comes out to $50, then you'll have $100 as a prudent reserve. Do you understand that? The rest of it is to be divided up in a 60-30-10 plan, or whatever plan the group conscience decides to serve.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, step right up to the mic.
I'm a recovering alcoholic. My name's Ken Newton.
Hi, Ken.
I asked 2 questions. I know that most of these questions that I have heard here this morning have dealt with the traditions. I asked the first question I asked, how many people in here have gone to a step meeting last week? Raise your hand. All right. How many people have gone to a traditions meeting in the last week? Do I answer the question?
You pretty well
I
did.
see. No, the reason I say this is I recognize over the past 3 years, a little over 3 years now, of attending a traditions meeting once a week. I have learned over that 3 years how important the traditions are. I would make a suggestion to more people who want to start a meeting to start a traditions meeting, because I feel personally that the traditions not only affect the groups that I go to, but it affects Ken Newton as to how his program reacts and how he treats other people and how he treats himself. So I make a suggestion as to the people from District 21 and the people from District 23 is to try to promote some more traditions meetings. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Very good. Go ahead, you can beat him.
I'm Tim Hall. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tim.
Well, he was talking about when you do get to a traditions meeting and somebody brings up a problem, like if we're on tradition 3 and then somebody brings up a problem, then we end up discussing that problem. Is that, I know our primary purpose is to help the one who suffers, but you know, if you go to a traditions meeting, you know, you're expecting to hear it on tradition, and then you hear it on something else, or maybe somebody's marital problem or whatever. If that be the case, are we there to help the alcoholic, or, are we there to do the traditions, Just say if I'm chairing, then, what should I do?
May I make another comment?
Sure, Ken.
I love these traditions, seriously. And I'm not knocking you down, Tim, or anything like that. We have a traditions meeting. It meets every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at Fairmont Church on Tar Hills in Dayton. We take the 12 and 12. We're on this next week, we're on Tradition 5. We read Tradition 5. We go and we discuss Tradition 5. If somebody else has a problem relating to that tradition, okay, fine. We discuss it. Anything else that comes up, this is a traditions meeting. It's not, I am not a marriage counselor. I am not a financial advisor in that meeting. I am there to discuss Tradition 5. And it's you have to put your foot down someplace on this. And that's what we're there for, to discuss the traditions. There's nothing else.
Tim Gray, alcoholic. We got enough meetings around that if I have a problem that doesn't relate to the tradition they're on that night, I can go to another meeting.
Also, there is a traditions meeting that is, I think Bob mentioned this in his opening remarks, or someone did, about the beginners, in the beginners meeting. And there are 3 or 4 beginners tradition meetings in Dayton. I know in Dayton every month. I know 2 of them.
Yeah.
Hi, Tom Warren. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tom.
Maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, you can tell me so.
Probably will.
And that's good. But I think if we remember our co-founder, I don't think we should forget where we came from. At least I shouldn't. Let's keep it simple. And it seems as though we're running into some complications. I don't come to AA to be entertained. I don't come to AA to be liked. I don't want to be a bread and butter AA man. I come here for one purpose. Maybe I'm a little bit too old-fashioned. But simplicity. Alcoholics Anonymous, it works better for me, this thick skull up here, if I keep it simple. And I think that's what we're trying to derive at. Through the procedures, there again, it's been brought up many times, I think it's up to the group conscience. The traditions, they're in the traditions. In simplicity, our co-founder got up out of his deathbed to give the talk in 1950, Dr. Baum. Let's try to keep it simple. Sometimes it's hard to do. But then again, through the proper guidance, there's something mentioned a while ago about hurting AA. I don't think I as an individual, I'm not going to con God. I'm going to be the loser, and I don't think people can hurt Alcoholics Anonymous. At least people, I've been around AA a couple days. I've heard people, they've got all the answers and never attended the meeting. But that's their problem, that's not mine. Let us not overlook what we have here. And I highly recommend it. Sure, we got problems, we got growing pains, we'll always have them. But try to simplify them. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Isn't that a beautiful voice?
I think 5 minutes are pretty well up. We're going to go into this Ask It basket again.